So I think recording has started. So good evening to all of you. Our speaker has already joined. So today the speaker is Professor Sunder Acharya, and the speaker has already given a talk on this platform earlier. I hope most of you, know this speaker. So Professor Acharya is my teacher at my graduation, and his influence on me. Uh, he was having a great influence on me at my graduation days or time. If one will see any political science book at my graduation, one may find one statement frequently in different pages of political science book. There uh, I was writing like this, that Acharya sir is my influential. So I was that much connected with him, and he has retired from Pokemon University. So far as his academics uh, is concerned, he is the student of three universities. He has done his BA and PhD from Utkal University. He has done his MA from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Then he has done his MPhil from our department, Sambalpur University. He has 23 years of PG teaching experience, and he has taught in Gangadhar Meher College, RD Women's College, MPC Autonomous College, then FM Autonomous College, then Fakirmon University. His area of specialization are political thought, political theory, Indian government and politics, political sociology, Odisha politics, etc. He has guided 18 MPhil scholars, and 10 PhD scholars have been awarded under him. He has authored 3 books, 17 research papers are there in his credit. He has 28 articles in the edited book and 12 articles in the conference proceeding. He has given 62 lectures as invited resource person in different academic institutions. So today he will speak on this topic: state and governance in India under globalization. So since I'm the convener, let me introduce the topic. I'm doing everything, so I'm doing it also. So governance is the key concept of development literature of 1990s, and development requires governance, and without governance development is not possible. Growth can be possible but not development. So governance is not exactly government, rather it is a broad concept than the uh, government. The notion of civil society brings about the difference between the governance and government. Role of state as sovereign actor comes at the top of governance. On the other hand, we find globalization stands for neoclassical model of development whose core is the free play of market forces and their decisive role in determining the pace and the content of growth. Mark this word, growth. So globalization is related with the growth, and governance is related with the development. This is key. The government role is sought to be minimized in the name of good governance as per the yardstick of world government. And today we are experiencing how the world government is guiding different institutions, including the
World Bank,
universities also.
Himanshu,
In
World Bank.
World Bank, in India, a paradoxical situation arises. What is that paradoxical situation? Now, elite wants more integration with the global economy or globalization, and masses, they want more of state and government for the implementation of directive principles of state policies. So both are important. Globalization is important, then the governance uh, taking state is also important. Both are important and both are the demand of the reality today. We want growth, we want development. On one hand, the rich is becoming richer, the poor is becoming poorer. And on the other hand, corruption and over bureaucratization, what I call negative bureaucratization, has been increasing in the name of welfare politics. Now, how to understand this continuation of both these contradicts or contradictory processes, globalization process and governance process? How to understand this continuation of both these contradictory processes? So let me welcome today's speaker, Professor Acharya, and he will certainly help us to understand this continuation, understand how these contradictory processes simultaneously that is that is happening today. So in the light of this introduction, I welcome Professor Acharya, who is my teacher, to start his talk. Thank you, sir. You may start now.
Thank you, Himanshu, and all the participants who are present, who are connected. And I am very happy to deliver the talk, being invited by my dear student Himanshu. And several times I have gone to Jyoti Vihar to deliver talks and to conduct various examinations. And I also did my MPhil there, as Himanshu was telling, because I was doing I was teaching in GM College. I taught in GM College for 9 years, for long 9 years, 78 to 87. So we means all my family members are well connected with Sambalpur because of our long stay there. And we like that place, and we like the university also. And I am happy, therefore, that I am going to address you on this state and governance under globalization in the context of India, and also I will come to the context of Odisha, because that will also interest you. But first we will understand my structure of presentation will be like this. I will first tell you what is governance and state, and then I will tell you what is the governance, the indicators of governance as spelled out by the World Bank. Then I will come to tell you what is globalization. Then I will tell you that the trinity of globalization, the World Bank, IMF, and WTO, and what is their role, I will tell you, and which is very interesting, very much realistic to know their role, because otherwise we cannot place any discussion I say, in the proper context nowadays. If we want to place any discussion in political science or in social science, in most of the areas, you cannot discuss it properly unless we place these three institutions in their proper context, because all are related, because our policies are dictated by these institutions, which we will discuss. Then I will come to Indian scenario. I will tell you what has happened in India, and Himanshu has already spelled out from my write-up that I will spell out what is the contradictory situation obtainable in India, and then I will come to the context of Odisha, and we will come to conclusion. We will discuss how we can be free from that. Free from the evils with which we are afflicted because of globalization. But let me make a point very clear to you in the very beginning, because in the course of discussion I may miss it. But let me tell you that in whichever refresher course or wherever I speak on this topic, I am in the habit of telling that globalization is inescapable, but at the same time, we must try to mitigate the ills of globalization. So that should be our approach, and in the context of India, That is very important in the context of India and in the context of Odisha, our state also. That is very important. And I will wind up my discussion. So this is the structure of my presentation. So first we come to governance and state. So far as governance is concerned, governance means the task of running a government. And this governance has become very prominent in the development literature of 1990s. And governance is a broader concept, as I told you, than the concept government or then government, then simple government. So it is a broader concept because it transcends state and government. Governance transcends state and government to include the civil society organizations, the private sector, like that. So civil society organization and private sector are, included, or they come under this governance. So the state is in constant dialogue. The state is in constant dialogue with these self-help groups and civil society, other civil society organizations, and the media, like that. So the state is in dialogue, and that is very important, which you must remember. And another important difference between governance and government is civil society. And let me tell you one thing, because you must have read civil society in your theory and at several stages. Civil society has become very prominent nowadays. And thanks to writings of Gramsci, it has become very, now we find much interest in Gramsci nowadays. Earlier in Odisha, few people knew about Gramsci. Few professors, few teachers or students knew about Gramsci. But now there is interest, so much interest is generated in Gramsci, in writings of Gramsci. Because you must know that Gramsci, who was a Marxist and who was an Italian thinker, all of you must be knowing, and who was put behind the bar by Mussolini, and Mussolini told about him that his brain must be stopped from functioning at least for 15 years in order to popularize Gramsci, because I came from JNU, and in JNU Sudipta Kaviraj was there. You must be acquainted with Sudipta Kaviraj, and presently Arun Patnaik, who takes much interest, Professor Arun Patnaik, who takes much interest in Gramsci, and I also have much interest in Gramsci. And Gramsci did one very important thing, that he divided superstructure of Marx into civil society and state. Do remember, because this will help you in your examination and in your clarity also. He divided superstructure, Marxian superstructure into civil society and state. And state, as all of you know, if somebody asks you what is civil society, then naturally you will say non-state organization, non-state. So state and civil society, if we want to understand them, in Gramscian sense, state is a coercive force. Forget about Gramsci. Even in simple, without Gramsci you can know that state is coercive. So state applies coercion. But civil society believes in persuasion. It persuades. It is a persuasive mechanism. And in normal time, civil society cajoles or coaxes consent out of the masses. This is Sudipta Kaviraj's language. So civil society cajoles consent out of the masses. All of you understand this, that consent is, obtained from the people through civil society. So the ruling class can function smoothly. Ruling class can function without much trouble. So in normal time, civil society is in operation. But when time is abnormal, when there is crisis, then state comes down heavily. And state shows its teeth. Or that means force becomes visible, or force is applied when there is crisis. But at the same time, the application of force itself betrays nervousness on the part of the system. When force is applied, for example, during fascism, when force was applied, at that time it betrayed nervousness on the part of the system. So this is Gramscian writing or Gramscian style of writing, and his book is Prison Notebook. All of you must be knowing. And in order to popularize Gramsci, when I was in Ramadevi Women's College, as Himanshu pointed out, I was in Ramadevi Women's College for also 9 years. Again for 9 years, I was in Ramadevi Women's College. Then in order to popularize, I was in charge of quiz competition. And in order to popularize Gramsci, I asked the students that say who identify the thinker about whom Mussolini said that this brain must be stopped from functioning at least for 15 years. At least for 15 years. And he was actually, when he was in the prison, he was given slow poison. And he used to be given pieces of papers on which he used to write. And after his death, all these were collected and put in the form of the book, Prison Notebook. So this is about Gramsci, and we see now much interest in civil society. And this civil society again makes the difference or marks the difference between government and governance. As I told you, governance transcends state and includes civil society organizations, private sector, etc. Now, after discussing this governance and how governance has become more important, and also remember, which Himanshu has pointed out already, that the state comes at the top of the structure of governance. The state comes at the top of the structure of the governance, though the governance transcends state. Earlier, in traditional political science used to be state-centric. All of you must be knowing that it was state-centric. So it was centered around state. But now it is no more state-centric. And during globalization, so far as governance is concerned, it transcends states and includes the civil society organizations. So this is about state and governance, or the significance of state and governance, and how governance, as I have told you, has become very, conspicuous in the developmental literature, and that too after the demise of communism. Because when you say 1990s, if you try to know what is the context, that the demise of communism, demise of Soviet Russia as a composite communist state. So then the civil society, then communitarianism, all these have become very famous. Postmodernism, so all these are related, and if you can understand properly, if you understand their context. Now, coming to governance or good governance, to be very specific, good governance. Good governance is supposed to be participatory, as pointed out by the World Bank. And World Bank points out, if you take the yardstick of World Bank, then what happens? That it is mainly economic in nature, good governance, because it emphasizes the management of the economic resources of society, managing the economic resources of the country. So more emphasis is given on this. Though other features are responsiveness, equity, transparency, accountability, etc. So all these are features of good governance. So which are important, which are assuming importance because of insistence of World Bank and UNDP. And if we analyze these features, if we analyze all these features, we find that how there is much interest in governance and good governance nowadays. And so far as good governance is concerned, let me tell you again, if we speak ideologically, it is enmeshed in neoliberal capitalism. And it marks a triumph of neoliberal capitalism over liberal socialism of the past. So, triumph of neoliberal capitalism over liberal socialism of the past. So, this is echoed in Fukuyama's The End of History. So, if you go through the book of Fukuyama, The End of History, again, in the context of the demise of communism, as all of you must be knowing, and you should know this thing. Now, so far as the different criteria of good governance are concerned, I will spell out a few. 7 criteria are there. It is called cluster of characteristics or cluster of good governance. 7 cluster of good governance. So first one is voice and accountability, the process by which a government is selected and replaced. Voice and accountability. Then political stability and absence of violence. Then rule of law. Then efficiency of government in implementing sound politics. I'm just telling you the points. I'm just telling you the points which will relate in the course of our discussion. So these are the features of good governance, or as I told you, 7 cluster of good governance. Now, other features are that means decentralization with devolution of power, then control of corruption. So like that. So these are features of good governance. Now, after telling you these features of good governance as spelled out by World Bank, UNDP, etc., now we'll come to see what is globalization, so that we can proceed and proceed systematically. Now, so far as globalization is concerned, it is a neoclassical model of development. Neoclassical model of development in which the market forces are at the core, and they determine decisively the pace and content of growth. Okay? Because you know that it stands for free trade, free market, unregulated market, free market, okay? Free investment. So, all of you know that globalization emphasizes on this. And market is the gateway of globalization. Market is the gateway, very interesting. Market is called the gateway of globalization. Okay? And the MNCs are called the principal architects of the global village. The MNCs are called the principal architects of the global village. Because all of you know, if I tell you that there was a period of colonialism, then there was the period when the colonies became free, then neo-colonialism prevailed. Then now this is the period of globalization. What happens? That these developed countries, they are attracted towards the developing countries because of cheap labor again. And that used to happen in during colonialism. If you read the book of Lenin, Imperialism, the High Stage of Capitalism, very interesting book, then you will find out that in spite of the fact that communism has failed in some of the countries, and we know that communism is no more, I mean, no more respected, because communism provided an alternative to capitalism. But still then, you find these books are very interesting, because if you want to explain imperialism, what happened to India, because we are subjected to imperialist rule, all of you know that they were interested, the imperialists were interested in systematically exploiting the colonies. Systematically, mark the word, systematically. They were unlike the Mohammedan attackers or invaders, because they came to India and stayed in India. But you find the imperialists, they were interested in taking away the resources, and that too in a very systematic manner. They are interested in taking away the resources in a very systematic manner, because we are only reduced to cheap, I mean raw material producing country. We supplied them raw materials, they produced finished goods, and they sold the finished goods in the markets. They got a good market, and they sold the finished goods. And this took place because of industrial revolution. So if you analyze Lenin's imperialism, you will find that, and now also in globalization, you find the same thing, that developed countries are more interested in developing countries because of this again. This cheap labor and natural resources like aluminium, bauxite, etc., etc. So many natural resources are there. So you will find that they are interested in this, in exploiting these resources and cheap labor also. So my point is that globalization, I always say in the class, that it is Americanization of the globe. And how I will justify in the course of my discussion, it is nothing but Americanization of the globe. And you will find that exploitation is still going on. And I will tell you that how during this globalization, especially during this globalization, you find that the national elite, the state elite, for example in India, national elite and state elite, elite of Odisha for example, and national elite, you know that, they hobnob with the elite overseas. I mean, they hobnob with the elite overseas. And they are out to exploit the natural resources, and the poor people are driven to the walls. So the unorthodox, which in India we have in large number, they are put to the walls. So this is the process of globalization, and so market has become, as I told you, the gateway. Market has become the gateway, and MNCs have become what? MNCs are the principal architects of the global village. So if we analyze globalization, we will find this thing, that the globalization is like this. So there is market fundamentalism. There is market fundamentalism, remember. And there is the, saying that market knows the, or there is the assumption that market knows the best. Remember, you can note down this sentence also. This is very interesting in the context of globalization, that market knows the best. For example, in individualism, we say that individual knows the best, or the individualist used to say individual knows his interest best. We used to say. But now, since there is market fundamentalism, there is the belief that market knows the best. So, as I told you, that production is going on by MNCs. And as I told you, that the elite overseas and the elite at the national level, at the state level, they hobnob. They hobnob. So there is alliance between these elites. And they do what? They have covetous eyes on the natural resources of the developing countries, especially. Covetous eyes on the natural resources of the developing countries. It may be bauxite, it may be iron, it may be anything, or natural resources, all the natural resources. And unfortunately, these natural resources are placed, most of the natural resources are placed in forest areas, hilly areas. So now you find that these hilly areas, like our Niyamgiri movement, which took place in the context of Odisha, I will tell you in the course of my discussion that these movements are the only silver lining in the otherwise dark sky. That these social movements are the only silver lining in the otherwise dark sky. Because this Niyamgiri movement has become successful, very much successful, and I will come to that. But before that, let me tell you that unfortunately these natural resources are located in the hilly areas, in the forest areas. So the MNCs are interested in these hilly areas and the forest areas. They don't mind what happens to the environmental position, or if they pollute the environment in the process. So if they pollute the environment in the process, they don't bother. If the Adivasis who live in forest, they are uprooted from their habitat, they are not bothered. They are not bothered. Like the Dongriya Kondo and Kutia Kondo, who are, ousted from the Niyamgiri hills. So they are not bothered. So, because they are interested in, exhausting the natural resources. And the government, the elite, as I told you, the elite at the national level and at the state level, they are interested also in exploiting this situation to their favor. And they hobnob, or they shake hands with the, elite abroad, overseas elite. So this is the process of globalization. And as I told you, if you ask me, sir, give an example of internalization of production or globalization of production. So I will tell you one example, Honda company for example. Take the example of Honda company. So parts are manufactured in one country, parts are designed in one country, another country, parts are assembled in another country. Therefore we say that how production has become globalized. Production has become globalized. This is a very befitting example. If you want to know, be very clear about how what is globalization and how production, what has happened to production process in globalization. I can give you this example so that you can understand well. And very interestingly, these MNCs, which are the principal architects of the global village, as I have told you, they are interested in what? They are interested in producing those things which will cater to the needs of the rich people, which will cater to the needs of rich people. And there is much emphasis on consumerism, remember, consumerism. They forget about the poor people who are left out of the market. Because I told you market knows the best, that philosophy operates, that market knows the best. So the philosophy is market knows the best, market fundamentalism as I told you. And the poor people are left out of the market because they don't have money, they don't have resources with them. So the MNCs want to cater to the needs of the rich people. So it wants to, globalization wants to chalk out what? A common future for the global middle class. Global middle class and upper class. So it wants to chalk out a future, common future for the global middle class and upper class. And it wants to cater to their needs. And very interestingly, I will tell you another thing. Everything is controlled by them, even information. Even information is also controlled by, these forces. That you must know. And I also tell that these MNCs are also interested in producing arms and weapons more, luxury items more than the essentials or the necessities which are the basic necessities of the poor people. The poor people want their basic necessities to be fulfilled. They are not bothered about that because they want to cater to their needs so that they can make profit. Because all of you must be knowing, you may be thinking, why is Sir telling all these things? That because they are interested in profit. And very interestingly, they are interested in producing arms and weapons more. Soviet Russia, present Russia, not Soviet Russia, present Russia, its economy mainly thrives on this arms sale. Remember, I have examined the thesis of Delhi University, JNU. Very interestingly, I have come to know that because Soviet Russia and present Russia's relation with different countries, I have examined the thesis, and I have come to know that Soviet Russia's economy mainly thrives or mainly survives depending on this arms sale. And MNCs are mainly interested, not Soviet Russia alone, in USA also. MNCs are all interested in producing those things which will cater to the needs of the affluent people. The affluent people. They are not interested what happens to the vulnerable section. And let me tell you another story behind globalization, which is very important and which I also told you in introduction. I told you that in USA, I told you that it is Americanization of the globe, or Pax Americana. This Pax Americana, this globalization process. What is that? That in USA, election is funded, election is financed by MNCs. Election of president is financed, only like other elections, are financed by MNCs. When somebody is elected as president, remember, then they put pressure on the president, whosoever may be president. They put pressure on the president to tell in the World Bank that you tell in the World Bank that the economy of the developing countries must be open so that we will enter into it. Just see the situation. And all of you must be knowing that in India, I always tell my students, or I always tell in the meeting, the biggest source of corruption in India is party funds. All of you must know this. The biggest source of corruption in India is party funds, because these party funds are unaudited and unaccounted. They are not audited, they are not accounted. So, what the party funds are diverted to, or what happens to party funds, how much is collected and how much is spent, for what it is spent, these are not audited. But you know that whatever salary we get, that is audited. That is, we are subject to, payment of income tax. But you see the status of the political parties. And the biggest source of corruption is that. All of you must know, the student, if you want to fight against corruption, you must know that that is the source of, main source of, chief source of corruption. And like that in USA also, the civil is there, maybe variation in degree. The MNCs, they fund, election expenses of the presidential candidate. And whoever is elected as the president is subject to pressure by the MNC. And in India also, who are elected, criminals are also elected, as you know. And there is a nexus between criminals, politicians, as you know, in India. And in USA also you find that MNCs, they can exert pressure on the president. And again, when we come to the scenario of the Trinity, as I told you, the World Bank, the IMF, and WTO, which replaced GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. In 1995, it was replaced. It was replaced by WTO. So these three institutions are very important nowadays in the world governance. Remember, when we are discussing about governance, all of us must know that in the world governance, which is not democratic, I would say, which is not democratic, and that you will know when I will explain you a few things. Remember that in the World Bank and IMF, only USA has got the right of veto. It is not Security Council where five powers have got, major powers have got the veto right. Here, only America has got the veto right. Why? Because the proportion of votes, or the what is the percentage of vote is calculated in proportion to the initial subscription made by the fund members. Those who instituted IMF, World Bank, how much they contributed. Depending on that, their voting right has been determined. So their voting right has been determined based on this. And based on the contribution of USA, USA has got more than 25% of votes. And only that country has got the veto right, remember. And only that country has got the veto right. So all of you must now can know that why America is so powerful. Because all the developing countries, not only developing countries, the developed countries also, they depend on IMF and World Bank. And when IMF and World Bank, they give loans, they put conditionality. As in our central-state relation, the states, they move with the begging bowl. The states move with the begging bowl. Because all of you know that in our central-state relations, states are not in a good position so far as finance is concerned. If somebody asks me, or if anybody asks me, if you want to reform, or if you want to restructure central-state relations, which one will you would say that it needs restructuring most? Then I would say that financial relation. It is well said that there is in India, in Indian Federation, there is apoplexy at the center and anemia at the periphery. Remember this sentence. There is apoplexy at the center and anemia at the periphery. Because the states do not have sufficient funds. The taxes which are allotted to the states in India, for example, they are, they are not elastic. But taxes like income tax, which is there at the disposal of the center, mostly, are elastic in nature. So, center is rich and states are poor. And almost, we can say, they move with begging bowls. And when center gives, money to them, it puts conditionality. Like that, the World Bank puts conditionality, IMF puts conditionality on the loans when loans are given to the developing countries. And India was forced to take loans. And we bring loans from World Bank. All the developing countries bring loan from the World Bank. And conditionalities are put. And USA plays the most important role. As I have already told you, that it has got the veto right. So now you can well understand why America is so powerful in this. Financially, why it is so powerful. Though it is now challenged by China, all of us know that China is emerging as a very important power, but America still has got this veto right, as I told you, in IMF and World Bank. So in IMF and World Bank, there is dominance of USA. And financial dominance is not only there is also the dominance of culture. Even the developed countries are afraid of USA. Like France, Sweden, they are also afraid of USA. Because they are afraid that their culture may be swamped by the American culture. So you know that globalization has its impact on our culture also. So globalization, as I told you, globalization-led development creates problem. And if you come to WTO, I forgot to tell you about WTO. If you come to WTO, there is one nation, one vote principle. One nation, one vote. But actually, what happens? This is in theory. But what happens? Small nations, poor nations are not in a position to stand up to the strength of the developed countries because they are dependent on them. So they are not ready to face the developed countries. So even if there is a principle, that the principle of one country, one vote, or one nation, one vote, unlike IMF and World Bank, but they are also, they dominate. And deals are struck in the green room. So far as GATT was concerned, deals used to be struck, I mean, decisions used to be taken in the green room. And few countries were invited to that green room. So in the secrecy of the green room, decisions used to be taken and imposed on other countries and as presented as fait accompli. And presented as fait accompli. So all of you can know that what is the way of working of these institutions on which we are so much dependent. And remember that our sovereignty of the state, we say, while at the beginning I told you that the state comes at the top of the structure of the governance. The state comes at the top of the structure of the governance because it is a sovereign actor. State is sovereign because it can make any law, and any law made by the state is binding, and all of you know that. So we know that British Parliament is the sovereign, which I used to teach Himanshu at the graduation level, that king in Parliament is sovereign. The British Parliament is the only example of legal sovereign that we used to teach. But what has happened to sovereignty nowadays? What has happened to the sovereignty of the state? State has been pushed to the background. State has been pushed to the background. Under the Constitution of India, state was supposed to play an important role in social change. It was supposed to play an important role in social change. And it was playing an important role in social change. But what has happened now? The state is relegated to the background, so to say. State is to be sidestepped, NGO is to be overemphasized, promoted. NGO is to be promoted. I am not telling that all NGOs are of equal type, I am not telling that. So, with some exception, we can accept things, but the problem is that state is sidestepped. And as I told you, that state is now becoming or is playing the minimalist role. You can note down. Therefore, we say that this is the neoclassical model of development. Less government, better. Less the government, better. Okay? So, you find that state and government are pushed to the background. State and governments are put to the background. When we say sovereignty of the state, I actually laugh at the idea. Or actually, because your policies, national finance is tied up with international finance. National policies are tied up with, policies dictated by this triumvirate, Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. So, in the present scenario, you can say, in the present world economy, you can say that World Bank, IMF, and WTO, they are Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, or they are the triumvirate, Trimurti. So, just see, your policies are dictated by them. What you do are dictated by them. Downsizing policy, you must have heard about that. I don't know whether you have heard about that or not. Downsizing policy means reducing the number of government servants. So in many government colleges, in many, aided colleges, you find, even in universities, you find there is shortage of staff. And you know that there is the system of guest lecture and contractual lecture in most of the time. And after you pass out, you don't know what fate is waiting for you, because you will become guest lecturer or contractor lecturer. It is very difficult to become, a regular lecturer. So think of the position. And what about the meritorious students, poor meritorious students? Because there is privatization of higher education. There is privatization of higher education. Many colleges have become autonomous now. Many colleges. New education policy, if you see, you will see that they have the idea to make, or they want to make almost all the colleges autonomous. Why? Anyone has thought over it? In my speech on educational policy of the government, I tell this, that why they are promoting the colleges to be autonomous? Because later on they will say that you look after your finance, we don't have money to finance you. And this is at the behest of, remember, World Bank and IMF. Our authorities, because they are depending on World Bank and IMF, they are bound to obey these policies, this downsizing policy, disinvestment policy. Remember, disinvestment. There is a ministry of disinvestment. There is downsizing policy. Why? All this under the influence of the, monetary policy of the World Bank and IMF. So as I told you, that if you want to understand any problem properly in any country, you have to relate it to the world scenario or world governance. So this is the world governance, as I told you, and which I don't like, as I told you, but because this is not democratic. This is not democratic. But we are forced to do that. We are forced to do that. So some in India, because there is diversity, there is diversity of views, different political parties, and political parties, ruling party also wants to come back to power again. Therefore, some check is there. Some check is there. But as I told you, that policies are dictated by the World Bank. And in Odisha, just let me give you an example, because I have told you about the colleges. You will find what has happened to the colleges. Gone are the days when Himanshu was a student in the college. Now, what happens? I find when I go to my native place, that is Himanshu's place also, Baleswar in Odisha, I find that so many colleges, tutorial colleges, near, just adjacent to my house, my residence, they are at Baleswar. So many colleges. And you will find students roaming here and there, and they are going in queues, and some teacher will be following them. Privatization of higher education. And in the college, government college, you don't find good students. You don't find good students. Parents are happy if they put their children in these residential colleges or the tutorial colleges, like that. And there is mushrooming of such type of colleges. Engineering colleges, medical colleges, you find those who don't have merit, they can also read medicine if they have money. 1 crore of rupees will be spent on each student, and a few people in India will be able to do that. So you see, what is the long-term impact of globalization on economy, on culture, on education, whichever front you take, you see what has happened to that. I don't like, because of this thing, that meritorious poor students, they will be driven to the walls. They will be driven to the walls. And let me tell you also that any problem, therefore, if you want to, trace it to the root, Marx told that to be radical is to go to the root of the matter. And for man, root is man himself. It's a very interesting statement of Marx, which I like, that to be radical is to go to the root of the matter. And for man, root is man himself. So, if you want to go to the root of the matter, you will find the world scenario. You will have to relate it to the world scenario. And as I have told you, that these type of problems are cropping up, and the contradictory situation which I have referred to in my write-up is that in the present situation in India, what happens, or present scenario in India, what happens, that the elite wants more and more of globalization. Why? You can ask me why? Because globalization caters to their needs. Globalization caters to the needs of the affluent, of the rich section. Their consumption basket, it wants to fill in their consumption basket. And there is much emphasis on consumerism. So, Elite is happy. Elite is happy. You will find families where their children are working in MNCs. They are very happy. They are in USA. They are in different countries, different foreign countries. They are very happy. So, as I told you, that for rich people it is very good. But so far as poor people are concerned, and even not so rich, and don't think that USA does not have problem itself, because many people there they pointed out that the benefit of the corporate sector goes only to a few pockets. So they staged a protest there in USA also. Don't think that it is free from that evil also. So that evil continues to be there. And as I told you, so the elite is happy. It wants more and more integration. And it wants more and more integration with what? With the global economy. It wants to remove all the bottlenecks. It wants to remove all the bottlenecks for the, integration of the, Indian economy with the global economy. And I can tell you about Shashi Tharoor. And I can tell you about a presidential form of government. There was a demand for presidential form of government. Because a country which is run, or a state which is run from the center, or which is more centralized, will help the process of globalization. Then the country which is more decentralized, which is more democratic, which is more plural in nature. So remember that our elite wants more and more integration with the global economy. Elite is very happy. But think of the poor people. Think of the poor and not so rich even. So those laborers who are skilled, they are to some extent benefited by the globalization process. But those who are unskilled, think about them. Many women are laborers also. All of you know. They are doubly disadvantaged in this process. So what do you find? That the poor people, they are driven to the walls and they want the state to be more active. But unfortunately, the state is shrinking from its constitutionally assigned role. The state is shrinking from its constitutionally assigned role. Therefore, there is disinvestment. And it is selling the shares even of the profit-making public sector undertakings. So, just see that the state is forced to do this. The state is forced to withdraw. Earlier, the state was active and it was performing the constitutionally assigned role. But now you will find that state is withdrawing. Government is withdrawing. Government is pushed to the background. Government is pushed to the background. But the poor people will not allow the government and the state to withdraw. They want more and more enforcement of the directive principles of state policy. They want more of state. So you see the contradiction, or you can say the conundrum, or you can say the puzzle in the Indian scenario. So in the Indian scenario, you see the puzzle or the paradoxical situation where the elite wants more and more of integration, less and less of state. Less and less of state. And the poor people, they want more and more of state. They want more of government. And you find as a result that social movements are taking place. Therefore, I told you in the introduction that social movements are like the silver lining in the otherwise dark sky. The silver lining in the otherwise dark sky. Think of the Niyamgiri movement, which became a successful movement. And I went to Hyderabad University, Central University of Hyderabad. I went there and Himanshu was present there. I presented a paper on a Niyamgiri movement. And let me tell you that this Niyamgiri movement became a success and I am very happy about that. In most of my lectures, I praise this movement because this movement became successful. And remember, because of the Grama Sabhas, and that too because of the insistence of the Supreme Court. Otherwise, the elite wanted to, sell all the bauxite. In Niyamgiri's hill, there are some perennial streams or perennial rivers which are flowing. And Dongriya Kandho, Kutia Kandho, They depend on these rivers. And the rivers are perennially flowing. And these Dongriya Kandha, Kutia Kandha, they lead an ecologically sustainable life. And bauxite has got a quality, it has got quality to retain water. So it can retain rainwater. So in dry season, it also becomes, it also, the river is perennially flowing. Therefore I told you, it is perennially flowing. So had the bauxite been, extracted from the hills, then you can well imagine what would have happened. Environment would have been destroyed. But these people, they lead an ecologically sustainable life. Who? The Dongriya Kandha and Kutia Kandha. They lead an ecologically sustainable life. They believe that that is the seat of Niyam Raja. And they take permission of Niyam Raja. Even to go for hunting or for food gathering, they take the, permission of Niyam Raja. So they will not do indiscriminate felling of trees or shifting cultivation like that. They will not do in such a way in which the environment will be jeopardized or the environment will be destroyed. Therefore, I told that they lead an ecologically sustainable life. But as I told you, as my theoretical background, if I remind you what I told you as a theory or as a generalization, that our national elite is, is having nexus with the state elite, and both of them have the nexus with the elite overseas. And they don't mind whether environmental pollution takes place or whether poor people are driven to the walls. Because they want to sign MOUs, our elite want to sign MOUs to hand over the natural resources. If bauxite is handed over to the MNCs in this way, what will happen? That within 75 years, all the bauxite resources, or less than that, bauxite resources will be exhausted. And the poor people will be driven to the walls, or they will be uprooted from their habitat. Uprooted from their habitat. And all of you can well understand why these social movements are taking place. And Niyamgiri movement became a success only because of, as I told you, Supreme Court, because Supreme Court insisted that there should be, and some NGOs also helped. Therefore I told that all NGOs are not bad. I have already told you that there is one Survival International. That also helped the people, Dongriya Kandha, Kutia Kandha at that time. The movement was supported by some NGOs. And Supreme Court gave the ruling that Gram Sabhas must be conducted. So 12 Gram Sabhas were conducted, and 12 Gram Sabhas decided that all of you must be aware of PESA Act. Panchayat, PESA Act, Panchayat extension to schedule area. PESA Act, all of you must be knowing that. PESA Act to schedule area, right? So what will happen to schedule area? Because Grama Sabhas must be conducted there, and Grama Sabhas they have got the power to overrule the collector even, remember. And the 12 Grama Sabhas which were conducted at the behest of Supreme Court, that they pointed out that they are ready for fighting till their last breath. They will not allow Vedanta to go for mining of bauxite. Just see. So I am very happy about this Grama Sabha, and I go on writing in the articles which I present that it is like Rousseau's, general will, not general will exactly, direct democracy. Rousseau was far ahead of Marx, remember, far ahead of his Marx, because he could know how alienation would take place even before capitalism could mature. So if you read the book of Quality, Lucio Quality, which is available in JNU, I don't know how many of you have got it. I told in Ravensa, some of the students have procured the book. So he has pointed out that Rousseau was ahead of his time, because he could know, he could locate the problem. And if you can locate the problem properly, if you can identify the problem properly, it amounts to half solution. Rousseau gave the problem, identified the problem, and Marx gave the solution. So Rousseau pointed out that power is alienated from the people after election. Therefore, he told that England is free only during election. See this statement. I don't know how many of you are acquainted with this statement that England is free only during election. After that, it is enslaved and it counts for nothing. Why I am telling about Rousseau right now? Because I feel that partially at least Rousseau's ideas have been fulfilled during this success of, or because of the success of Yomgiri movement, and the Grama Sabhas are playing an important role, and judiciary is also playing an important role in the when we discuss about the governance. I will tell you, when we were students, so Himanshu I taught, but when I was a student in FM college, at the graduation level, at that time we were writing that judiciary was a very conservative force and Indira Gandhi posed herself as a very progressive force, or the executive, the government projected as a very itself as a very progressive force. But now there is role reversal. You will find that judiciary is becoming progressive. Judiciary is, projecting its progressive image. So because of, thanks to the efforts of judiciary, that the movement became successful. So my point is that if you look at all these problems, all these movements which are taking place now, you will find that these problems are taking place and the movements are taking place because of the reasons which I have told you during the course of my lecture. So during the course of my lecture, I have already told you how everything is connected. Everything is connected. And this elite-led development, which is globalization, which is, as I told you, it is nothing but Americanization of the globe. It is nothing but Americanization of the globe. Why I told you, I hope you will understand. France is afraid of American culture swamping their culture, because most of the films shown there are screened in USA. Even television serials. So just see, country like France is afraid of USA, that their culture being swamped by USA culture. So if you look at the process of globalization, as I told you, this is, we have come to a very sorry pass. No doubt some development has taken place, as I have told you, that you can satisfy your needs, you can have information you can get. That I know. It has got some good points, no doubt. Therefore, I told you that it is inescapable. I have already told you that it is inescapable because you cannot think of the growth or development taking place without globalization at the present in the present context. But just see another example I will give you. Before I wind up my discussion, I will give you another example and come to conclusion. Just see, when our farmers are committing suicide, but the World Bank, IMF, WTO especially, they are telling that don't give subsidy. So I told you that they put conditionality on the loans. When they give loans, they put conditionality, they impose conditionality. So one such conditionality is that don't give subsidy to the farmers. Don't give, reduce government employment. Reduce government employment. That is the top priority, all of you must be knowing. Don't give pension. So now pensions will not be available to Himanshu, I think. Pension, regular pension which we are enjoying, that will not be available to, most probably to Himanshu. Other forms of benefit he will get, but pension he may not get. I don't know exact position, but pension is not given to the regular employees even now. So all this is done at the behest of this trinity, as I told you. So our farmers are committing suicide, but they are telling that you reduce subsidy. You reduce subsidy, don't give them subsidy. So what is the scenario? And the elite, as I told you, dancing to that tune, and they are in, they are in hobnobbing, or they are in partnership with the elite overseas, and this is the scenario. This is the globalization-led development. So what I insist is that there must be development by one and all, not by a few. I am against the elite-led development. If you ask me, as a political science teacher, that's who rules? I will say elite rules. And I will tell you, now the criminals also rule. And the criminals also become elite. And the criminals also claim that they are elite. And some dons, they claim, do you know what they say? They say that so many IAS officers are there. How many dons of the underworld are there? I am not telling the name of one person, one Odia person, I am not telling. But I keep it telling in the class. But just remember that they are elite. Because elite is a value free term. All of you must be knowing. Do you know that? Elite is a value free term. Why it is value free? Who told it? Pareto told it. Elite is a value free term. What does it mean? It means that elite is capable for both good as well as evil. Elite is capable for both good as well as evil. So not that only good people are elite. Bad people are also elite. Haji Mostan was one don of the underworld. And there has been one film on the basis of his story, life story of Haji Mostan. He was arrested during emergency. When Mrs. Gandhi declared emergency, he was arrested. And do you know what statement he gave? I am very much fond of quoting Haji Mostan. Haji Mostan. He told, politicians abuse me by daytime, but at night they come to me and I dole out money to them. Just remember. So I tell my students that if question is asked, if a question is put to you, who rules? You say elite rules. Laswell's book. Who gets what, when, and how? Who gets what, when, and how? That is the best answer. That book is the best answer. Who gets what, when, and how? Resources are limited. Resources are limited, values are limited, but who get maximum of that is called elite. That elite may be good or bad. Among the bad people, the worst people are the elite also, like Haji Mostan. Politicians take money from them and they dictate everything. And they are also dictated in turn by the Trinity, World Bank, IMF, and as I told you, WTO. So you see the scenario. I am against this type of development. Panchayat Raj, whatever development has taken place in Panchayat Raj, many research scholars have got their PhD under my guidance, so far as the topic Panchayat Raj is concerned. But I say personally that 73rd Amendment, yes, very remarkable. Some interesting development has taken place, but I say that we must go beyond 73rd Amendment. And corruption, criminalization, which are there, as I told you, control of corruption is one of the yardstick of the World Bank so far as good governance is concerned. How can you control corruption? How can you control corruption? You can control corruption only when there is decentralization. Do you know why criminals are entering into politics? Criminals are entering into politics because there is a vacuum at the local level, at the level of the periphery. Because politicians, they don't have roots there. Middlemen, they have contact with the middlemen. They don't have contact with the mass. They are not like Gandhi, Jayaprakash or Vinoba, who did not want to come to power in spite of the tremendous popularity they enjoyed. That I say, that I have termed in my thesis, anti-power orientation of the elite. Anti-power orientation, because elite is always for power. Power seeker. They want to augment to their power. But one interesting aspect of Indian political culture which baffles the foreign observers is this anti-power orientation, which was initiated by Gandhi, Vinoba, Jayaprakash. We will not find that. But the development is elite-led development. But I want mass-level development. And even if Rousseau cannot be implemented, ideas of Rousseau cannot be implemented properly, but we can have something. For example, if we have the provision of recall at the grassroots level. At the grassroots level, we have the provision of recall. More powers can be given to the grassroots. And the grassroots will decide which power they will transfer to the state. State will decide which power they will give to the center. But now what you find that everything is centralized. And even the political parties, they are not free from this evil. Smallest political party speaks of the high command. Everything is dictated by high command. No internal democracy in the political party in India. And I was telling you that there is a vacuum at the grassroots level. So the criminal elements, they enter into that, taking advantage of that. The criminal elements, they become heroes. They are the rebels among the oppressed, suppressed. Oppressed people, they feel that they are the heroes. If you see our films, in the films what is projected? Hero. He is a rebel and he is helping the poor people. But he is doing also criminal activity and he is popular. He is popular. So why criminalization, corruption is taking place? And it should not be there in good governance. It should not be there. There should be proper decentralization, as I told you. There should be decentralization and devolution of power, as I have already told you. There should be devolution of power to the people, as I have told you. And that is the emphasis of good governance. That is at the behest of World Bank, as I have told you. But how good governance should be there unless these Gram Sabhas, they function properly? Because some vested interests are there. They want to, stall the functioning of these Gram Sabhas. They are not interested in Gram Sabha. Because elite at the national level does not want to give more power to the elite at the state level. Elite at the state level does not want to give more power to the elite at the local level. And the elite at the local level does not want to give more power to the masses. But I am for the masses. How we will think of the ways? How it is possible? How it is partially, if it is possible also, that is good. So I feel very happy when these Grama Sabhas are very active. When these Grama Sabhas are very active, I feel personally very happy. So let us put our heads together and think that how to check this elite-led development. So I am for development by all, one and all, not by a few. But by a few, it is going on. And it is very difficult to stop it. Not that it is very easy. Because unless people are conscious, not only educated, unless people are literate, educated, and conscious also, and apathy should not be there, then only we can have development by the masses, or development participation will take place by the will be possible on the part of the masses, and not that they will be dictated by elite, and our elite will be dictated by IMF, World Bank, and WTO, the Trinity, as I told you. So I want this type of development in which proper development will take place. Even if you take the yardstick of World Bank, if we want to implement them properly, we will have to take care of these things. Life must be made tolerable for the masses. The state can do that. Life has to be made tolerable for the masses. But elite-led development I don't want. As I told you, elite level development I don't want. And governance cannot take place without government. So governance cannot take place without government. Government will be there, but participation by people must be there. The elite only, pays lip service to it. The elite only pays lip service to it by saying that the masses are powerful. Elite will keep on telling that the masses are powerful. They will say, oh, the voters are our God. Electorate, that is God. Electorate decides everything. They will keep on paying lip service to that. But they never want to dwarf their power in favor of the masses. They never want to dwarf their power in favor of the masses. And I have conducted some interview, very interesting interview during my doctoral research. And my finding is that, let me share with you, very interesting point, which all of you will remember forever, that some of the legislators who became ministers using either Gram Panchayat or municipality as their launching pad, they were not in favor of giving more power to the Panchayat. Because I asked a question to them, that do you want to give more power to the panchayat, even more power than what is envisaged by 73rd Amendment? They say no, because whatever power is given, let them exercise that power properly. And I tried to check their background, and I found very interestingly, I know their names also, I remember their names, and I have their responses with me even now, I have their responses with me. Very prominent ministers and important VIPs, even some from political science background, they registered the idea of giving more power to the panchayat. But I want that more power should be given to panchayat. And let me tell you, this Vinova, Joyprakash and Gandhi, whom I quoted in the context of anti-power orientation, whom I like, all of them emphasized more power, giving more power to the panchayats, grassroots organization, and they believed in power to the people. Just see the connection. They did not want to come to power in spite of tremendous popularity, but they wanted to give more power to the people. So anti-power orientation has got another aspect, as I told you, more power to the people. So development proper can take place. Governance can be proper, genuine. Not if we only take the yardstick of World Bank. In view of all what I have explained to you, and you know that how many elites have got vested interest in this present globalization-led development. Globalization-led development, I will tell that you will find that they are not interested in giving more power to the masses, and masses are at the mercy of the elite, and the masses will be deprived of the basic necessities. But globalization-led development will go on filling in the consumption basket of the affluent, and that is consumerism. I am also against consumerism because that is a very dangerous trend. We had one seminar when I was the professor there. We had one seminar on this consumerism. Very interesting. A book has also been brought out. On that I have contributed articles also. So that is a very dangerous trend, that you don't care for what happens to other people. But Lasky told what? I have no right to take cake if my neighbor, because of that right, goes without bread. I have no right to take cake if my neighbor, because of that right, goes without bread. But the elite does not think of the masses. Only it pays lip service to that. So if governance is to be proper, if proper governance is to take place, then as I told you, government is to be there, not that less government that should be pushed to the background. At the same time, social movements are coming, surfacing, and they are also emphasizing, on the, immediate necessity, how they are to be fulfilled. And as I told you, that these movements are the silver lining in the otherwise dark sky. So we believe in development of the masses, development by one and all, not by few, that is elite-led development. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. I mean, I can remember the Gandhi's concept of Sarvodaya. And you also said in your talk, uh, when you are in crisis, then you should reduce yourself to the zero, or you should come to the individual and the individual's nature. So, I mean, the system is the reflection of that human nature. And if you want any change in the system, then there must be the change in the human nature. And again, I'm saying that human nature is also shaped and reshaped by the system. That is also the reality. You know, the difference between yesterday and today is that it's not that right now corruption is there. Corruption has been there. Yesterday, good people have, they behaved badly, and today bad people are behaving nicely. So at the end, there are pain, there are not pleasure. On one hand, we are having globalization and its impact, severe critical impact on human life. And on the other hand, the state is facing the problem of corruption, criminalization, communalization, etc., etc. On one hand, you said that the state is shrinking, and the other hand, the masses are not allowing it. Again, you said that rich is supporting to the globalization and poor is supporting to the state. My question is that why poor is not supporting globalization? Does it mean that globalization is always negative? And why the rich is not supporting state? Does it mean that the state is negative? Or in other words, I can say that globalization is not always negative and state is not always positive also. And we all are in that critical juncture. What to do in this crisis? I think we can discuss about it. There is no answer. There is no answer at all. And almost each and every talk, we are coming to this point. What to do? What to do? So this is my kind of thinking. After listening to your talk, I am also thinking, and when you unpacked everything, now I am feeling like a dark future for our coming generation. And today this generation, my generation, is also living in the dark. We are not sure about what is important for us, what we need. Money cannot buy everything. But then what human values are being created by the globalization or by the state or politics? So these are some of the concerns, and students have already they have asked many questions that is in the chat box. And let me tell you, in your talk, Professor Apurva Mukhopadhyay from Bardhaman University, then Vishnu Chaudhary from Berhampur University, they joined, but right now maybe they are not with us. I want you to, give a reflection on my pen. I will not say that it is question, it is my pen. It is not my pen, it is the pen of all. And I like that statement of Lasky, what you mentioned, that I have right over that cake, provided my neighbor is also having a cake in his or her lunch or dinner. If my neighbor is not having, then I don't have that right. I think that moral values and ethics is required. Otherwise, if it is not there with the individual, the globalization and the state both can become negative for the individual's growth and happiness. Now, how to bring that morality and ethics? What individuals should do, what society should do, what states should do, what market should do? I am doubtful and I am becoming cynical. But your support to the mass and to the people, again it depends whether masses are having those virtue, wisdom, ethics. Otherwise, these masses, they will give everything to the elite, and they will continue to be exploited by the elite. Elite is a elite because of the nature of masses. So I'm sorry, but this is my pen actually. I cannot see the road. So I request you to bring some light on those points what I raised. After you respond, then I will go back to the questions asked by the students.
Okay, okay. So thank you for your concern. That last key statement is, I have no right to take cake if my neighbor, because of that right, goes without bread. So that statement is like that. I have no right to take cake if my neighbor, because of that right, goes without bread. So that is the statement of Lasky. Very interesting statement. Now, another point which you told about corruption. Corruption is now there. It was also earlier there. But remember, Himanshu, one thing, that corruption. The difference is that corruption has now got legitimacy. Very painful is that corruption has got now legitimacy. Those who are those who are indulging in corruption, they can raise their heads straight. But earlier, they feeling, ashamed. They were feeling ashamed, but now they can raise their heads straight because it has gained legitimacy. So very important difference is there. And another point, that what I told, I have already told, because I was I may be telling the things hurriedly, therefore you might not have got it. That point is that because of globalization, especially unskilled laborers, not skilled ones. Skilled ones are benefited to some extent, but unskilled laborers are driven to the walls. Therefore, we cannot say that globalization has not given benefits to people who are laborers also, but unskilled laborers, they are not getting the benefits. And another point is the consumerism, that the elite, after the consumption basket is full, now they should have restraint on them. They should have ceiling on their desire. They should have ceiling on their desire. And as you told that there should be some moral compulsion on the part of the elite, because they should think of other people, as you told Sarvadaya, they should think of other people and not their own benefits only. If they think of only their own benefits, then and they are very rich in the process of globalization, then naturally this thing will happen. And the masses, in order to be real participant in the democratic process, as I have already told you, that they must be not only literate, not only educated, they must be conscious. They must be conscious so that they can participate. And vested interest will not be there. And you, as you told that virtue, wisdom in case of elite, yes, some elite are virtuous, they are wise, no doubt. But as I have already spelled out, elite is a value-free term. And so criminal elements, they are also elite, who can do the maximum crime, and in a very skilled way, they are also elite. And that is the unfortunate part. And so if we believe in Sarvodaya, if we believe in ethical values, then we will expect that they should have restraint. At least those who are beneficiaries of globalization, they should have restraint. And this consumerism should be put under check. This consumerism should be put under check. Because you find that the one word is there in English, ostentation. Displaying wealth. In marriage ceremony, you go on, spoiling food when poor people are not getting food to eat. So there should be curb on this, and naturally ethical values or ethics is very important in that regard, because everything you cannot look up to state. And state is a negative force, as you told. Yes, that is a negative force also. That is a negative force also. But state also works for the poor people in the form, it works for the implementation of directive principles of state policy, etc. So if people are vigilant, they can also put check on the state. Because I am in the habit of telling, while delivering lectures in several seminars on human rights, I say the state is the worst, perpetrator of the violation of human rights. The state is the worst perpetrator of violation of human rights. In the form of police, in the form of police lockup, in the form of police custody, many poor people die there. So my concern is for poor people, actually those people whose voice is not heard. You can say the SAR is for subaltern, subaltern or the poor people, common people. So we should not always emphasize on elite. Elite tries to take credit even for what poor people has done. Without cooperation of the poor people, masses, you cannot do anything. So masses should be very active. And for example, I gave you example that Ramasava and that type of institution, must be very active, so that there will be restriction on the power of the elite. There will be restriction on the power of the elite. There should be restriction. If there is no restriction, that as I have spelled out the process, entire process, how it is connected and how they are interested in their own profit, our national elite, state elite, and the elite abroad, elite overseas, then that will be a pathetic sin if this process goes on. So there must be restriction. In India, some restriction, as I have told you, are there because the diverse political views are there, and parties, I mean, political people, they want to be elected, and consensus is not that easy in India. So some check and balance is there. Otherwise, if this process goes on, subsidy is totally withdrawn, for example, and you find farmers are committing suicide, what will happen? What will happen? Think of the poor meritorious students. My straight question is, think of the guest lecturers, think of the contractual lecturers. How long this process will go on? How long this process will go on? And how long we will produce not good so good doctors, not they are not very competent, but because of money they have become doctors. Because of money they have become doctors. And the leaders, they will go abroad for treatment, and the masses will be left at the disposal of these so-called doctors. I mean, I can say them quacks. So quality also becomes a victim. Quality also becomes a victim. That quality becomes a victim if you take all these, all these aspects into account, all this scenario into account. Quality also becomes a victim. And I am also for quality. While standing for the masses, that masses should not be left in the lurch, I also stand for quality. Even I say higher education should be restricted to a few, those who are really eligible, not to all.
I agree, sir. I agree. I think that's the critical situation we are all we are at this juncture. So if you pay 1 crore, then you are getting a doctorate degree. Then you will be. I mean, after becoming the doctor, you will become a businessman. Then to be a doctor. Then the elite will go to America, and the masses, they will be they will be the victim of the so-called doctor. I mean, what you mentioned, so-called, because good doctor, they will leave India, they will go abroad. So this is the, I mean, in that sense, it is the, what Jogendra Jadhav said, social justice is the victim of its own success. So what apparently it is a success, that is also in a critical, sense, it is also a failure. It's not a success, it is a failure actually. So now let's take some of the questions asked by our participants. So Brundavan is asking this question: how can the nexus between the elite and the capitalist be broken in exploiting the natural resources? How can a poor fellow be a bona fide member of globalization process? Sir, I will read
Yes, yes.
one question. I will read
Right,
one
right, right,
question, then
right.
you briefly respond to this. Briefly.
Right, right. So poor is left out of the market. Market does not have sympathy for poor people. And so poor cannot be part of globalization process. That is my perception, that poor cannot be a part of globalization because he is left out of market. So because he does not have money, simply he does not have money, he cannot purchase what he likes to purchase, so he is left out of market does not have concern for it, and market knows the best. As I told you, market knows the best. Market fundamentalism has grown, and so poor people are left out of the market. And what is the other part?
How to break the nexus between elite and capitalism
Yes, people
or
must be
capitalism.
conscious. There must be movements, but the movements must be must not be disjointed. They must be coordinated, so that there will be some pressure on the elite and the unholy alliance or nexus. Not only nexus between elite and capitalist. You find a capitalist and criminals, politicians and criminals. That is the worst part of India. That is the worst part of Indian politics. All of you must be knowing that criminalization of politics is growing, and it is very difficult to check. And all the political parties, by my problem is that all the political parties, they suffer from this vice. All the political parties, no party exception. No party is exception. All the parties suffer
I
from
beg your
this.
pardon, sir. I
Yes,
beg your pardon for interruption.
right.
Sir, may I grant to talk something?
Yes,
Okay,
Himanshu sir.
Brindavan, you should be very briefly.
Sir, namaskar.
namaste.
Sir, sir, you have said that the market doesn't have concern for the poor. But my question is that how can the poor be made a bona fide beneficiary, of globalization process?
Yes,
How
so
can,
develop.
is
Yes,
there any
development.
way? Is there any way?
Brindavan, your question is well taken. You should have patience. So let the speaker respond to it. Yes,
Okay, sir.
Acharya sir.
Huh. I told you now that poor, unless he has money, he is left out of the market. And market is the gateway to globalization. So how can we be part of globalization? So because of some of the plans of the government, some of the programs of the government, they are getting benefits. They are just sustaining themselves. But how can we be the bona fide member of or part of globalization? For example, the elite, the rich and affluent and the middle class, they are enjoying their lives. How a poor man can enjoy? Poor man can only sustain himself with the paltry amount which is given to them by the government as welfare measures. So government is taking some welfareist measures that they will have and they will
Okay.
sustain themselves. They
Uh,
cannot be, member of, they cannot be beneficiary of globalization in the sense other people are having that benefit.
so the speaker is saying, Brindavan, that they cannot be the bona fide member of the globalization process. But
Right.
if you know that they can become the bona fide member, and how they can become the bona fide member, if you have any idea, you can also share with us.
Oh, if is
Sorry, sir.
supposing poor people, I told that some welfareist measures are taken by the government. They are getting some benefits. If a poor people by his own merit, he can stand up to
Acharya
the
sir,
competition. He can be a part of the globalization also. If he can
Acharya
stand up
sir,
to the yes, if he can stand up
please.
to merit. So supposing a poor meritorious student, for example. Now it is difficult for him to face the competition because I have spelled out so many things. But if he can
Sir,
stand the competition, if he can become something on his own, then he can be a part of globalization. Otherwise, the welfareist measures which are taken by the government, he will avail that, and he can
sir, you are
be.
saying the sir, you are saying the same thing. When the poor become rich, then they can
Hmm.
be the bona fide member
Natural,
of the
natural.
globalization process.
Otherwise, how they can
Sir,
be
I think
beneficiary of globalization? How they can be
sir,
beneficiary of
I got your
globalization?
sir, I got your point. Let Brindavan respond to it. Let's
Ah.
listen to him.
Hmm.
Yes, Brindavan.
No, sir. Sir, my question is that is there any solid way, or should there be some timely check on the globalization process? Sir, my question is that should there be any timely check?
There should be check. There should be
No,
check.
sir.
Huh.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, I
No,
told
sir.
you na. I told you in USA, even though their condition is much better than the condition of the, those who are at the bottom. Their condition is much better than those who are in India. They are also protesting because the benefit of the corporate sector is going to only a few pockets. They are also
Sir, thank
protesting there.
you. Sir, thank you. Let's take some other question because I can
Thank you,
request
sir.
you, after this, after I stop the record, then you can be with us for 5 minutes and Vrindavan can have chat with you.
Okay,
So
okay,
the next
okay.
question Trilosan is asking, sir, what are the negative impacts on Indian culture by globalization? I mean, how
Yes, yes.
globalization has affected Indian culture?
Yes. Fast food, fast food. Our children are forgetting chuda kadali. They forget chuda kadali. They forget. They are so much attracted towards English. Even you will be surprised to know. You should not be surprised. Maid servants are sending their children to English medium school. English is so much appreciated that your own language is jeopardized. Okay, and you know the impact of fast food. You go to different, places like Delhi, Bombay, even to Bhubaneswar. If you go to some malls, you will find how children are enjoying the fast food. They forget their own food. So culture is being, is threatened by the Yankee culture, by the culture of the America and other countries. Not only America, few industrialized rich countries, they actually rule these three institutions which I referred to in my lecture. So our culture is going to be threatened. So Gandhian way is the solution that you learn from other culture. We Indians or we Hindus, we are very tolerant. We learn from others, but at the same time, though we keep all our windows open so that winds will blow from all across the region, but we should not be swept up our feet. So we should stick to our tradition. We should stick to our tradition, and you will find that divorce rate is increasing. Divorce is increasing. And when marriage takes place, you don't know when a divorce is going to take place, how soon the divorce is going to take place. So
That's true
some
actually.
impact, some impact also, some impact of this globalization also, and
Sir
our
Pradeep,
consumerism is also to blame. Our consumerism is also to blame. We are becoming very consumerist, and we don't believe in traditional values. We don't believe in traditional values which are long lasting, which should be long lasting. Yeah, our joint family is contribution to the world at large. Our joint family is contribution to the world at large. But joint family is no more going to thrive. You see that it is, pressure is being exerted on the disintegration, for the disintegration of the joint families. So that is how our culture is going to be swamped. And
sir, thank you.
also,
Pradeep is asking, sir, we got it, sir. Sir, Pradeep is asking, what is the status of Indian sovereignty in the era of globalization and MNCs?
is empty.
No, no, sir, what is the status of Indian sovereignty in the era of globalization and MNCs?
Acha, acha. I have already explained to you this thing during my lecture. You might not have got it properly. So I have already told you that MNCs are the principal architects of the global village. I told you. They are the principal architects. They are very powerful. These MNCs are very powerful, remember. And so far as sovereignty is concerned, these MNCs, through the World Bank, IMF, and WTO, I have already explained to you, they are putting pressure on our sovereignty because our policies are dictated by the World Bank, IMF, and WTO. So we cannot claim to be sovereign in the pure sense of the term because our national finance is, tied up with international finance, and our national policies are also tied up with the policies dictated by these institutions, the Trinity or the Triumvirate, as I told you. So our sovereignty is at stake. If Pakistan's defense minister, who will be defense minister, is decided by another country, then what will you say? Is it sovereign? I give this example to my students in the class that who will be the defense minister in Pakistan. If it is decided by USA, for example, earlier it was decided. Then what? Will Pakistan be sovereign? Like that, our policies are dictated by, I have already told you, downsizing policy. I hope you have understood downsizing policy, disinvestment policy, this withdrawing subsidy to the farmers. This is very interesting study you can make. You can do research on that also. And what is the plight of the farmers? And that you can also explore. So our
Sir,
sovereignty is at stake.
sir, Himanshu is asking this question. Himanshu is my student. My name is also Himanshu. So he's asking when the globalization will be more helpful to underdeveloped state rather than developed state. So he's
Right.
asking in which circumstances globalization can be, helpful to the underdeveloped but developing states rather than developed states.
Yes, my answer is that when these institutions like World Bank, IMF, and WTO are more democratized, they should be more democratized. And I hope China and India, they are taking lead now in WTO in making the institution more democratic. That we have bargaining power. We have some bargaining power, and let us develop that bargaining power so that, and we should be economically developed also, not that we should be at their mercy only. India should be economically developed, I always say. That we should be economically developed. Therefore, I say that globalization is inescapable because if we want to develop, we cannot escape globalization. That is also my point.
Vidyasagar is asking this question. Sir, do you think middle class is an illusion and it is only an ornament designed by MNCs to stop revolution?
Middle, no, no, actually, that is not the design of the MNCs to stop revolution. Actually, they MNCs are interested in making profit because they did not stop revolution because revolution has stopped on its own. I will say, revolution has stopped on its own. Only movement you find now. No fear of revolution is there now. China has also become fully globalized. China has become capitalist so far as its economy is concerned. Only politically it is, I mean, dictatorial, also communist. So I don't support China also, as in I don't believe China is an alternative model of development. But if you want to, I mean, improve economically, you have to develop like China also. Forget about the political part. Political part. We have democracy. We have democracy. So we can. What was your point? Question, Himanshu? Please repeat again. Repeat.
Okay, his question is that do you think middle class is an illusion and it is only an ornament designed by MNCs to stop revolution?
No, no. I don't agree because I told you that no fear of revolution is there. No fear of revolution is there in the present context. You see the world scenario. The revolution possibility is not there. So it need not, the MNC need not design or need not think the middle class how to stop revolution or they did not, cater to their consumerist needs or they design them in such a way that revolution will stop. Revolution has stopped. Movements are there now. Movements are there, and if revolution is necessary, then people have to be conscious again, and they have to even after revolution. What happens? After revolution, what happened? If you are a supporter of revolution, what happened after revolution? Elitism again developed. In Russia, I teach in the refresher course classes. I tell the teachers that revolution after revolution, they in the name of masses, the elite again became powerful. So I don't support revolution anymore. I want that this movement must be successful and this movement must be coordinated and there is no fear of revolution. If revolution, genuine revolution which Marx was thinking, if it takes place, then it will be a paradise. But I don't know if it is possible. I don't know if it is possible and in the present context, nobody will believe that it is possible. And no fear of revolution is also there.
So thank you, sir. The last question is asked by Duroti. She is our department student from Africa.
Achha.
She is asking from my own point of view, I think new practical models needs to be developed to curb the present crisis of power because if elite continues to rule, then there cannot be development and participation for all. But the question still remains who will develop this model?
Yes, your question is very good, very interesting. I also agree with you, and that was my contention. But the model has been given by Gandhi. If we stick to our Gandhian model, Gandhi has given that model. Therefore, I told you when I told you anti-power orientation of Gandhi, Joy Prakash, Vinoba, I again told you that they in three of both all of them. I mean all of them, all the three. They emphasized on more power to the people and the grassroots organization and panchayat institutions and village republic. So Gandhian model is there very much. So we need not look for Gandhian, other model. Gandhian model is there at least for Indians and even for world. Even the world also knows that Gandhi was a great man, and they wonder that whether this man was there in flesh and blood. So that model is there. If you read Gandhi, with interest, you can know that Gandhi has given many answers and Gandhi could succeed in driving out the imperialists. So let us follow that model. So that model is there
I
before
think
us, guardian model.
For Gandhi, men are moral. So only when you are moral, then Gandhian model can work. But do you think that from practical sense or practical point of view or from our practice, do you think that we are moral? I mean, we are those thieves. Now you know we developed a system, a corrupted system, because we are thieves. Now, to what extent it is possible for us to become Valmiki from Ratnakara? Is it really possible for us to become Valmiki when we are actually Ratnakara?
So have you finished, Himanshu? Should I say?
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir.
Uh-huh. So you have told a very good thing, but the problem is, and not problem exactly. I hope that this corruption comes out of scarcity. My hunch is that it comes out of scarcity. So if the life becomes tolerable for the masses, and if people do not change their values, and I think that their values change because of again their utter poverty. So I feel that if condition becomes tolerable for the masses, there may be change in the outlook also, and corruption may also come down. As I told you that more power to the people, decentralization like that. So if that takes place, that corruption will come down. We cannot say that we will totally root out corruption, but corruption will come down if some conditions are taken care of.
Sir, again I have problem. You individuals
Hmm.
are not guided by their need rather than by their greeds. So as
Right.
long as there is no ending point to our greeds, and I will do corruption till my death, even if I know that I am not going to take anything when I will leave this earth. But still, then the corruption is continuing. And at the
Right.
end, we know that this corruption will kill us, it will destroy us. But still,
Right.
then
Right.
we are forced to do, in a sense, the middle class is also forced to do corruption. If you are not doing corruption, then you cannot exist.
Right, 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 you are right. But my point is that if we want to check corruption, socialization is the most important thing. In the family itself, if the father is corrupt, and if the father goes on telling the son and the daughter that you be honest, will they be honest? So, father is the father and mother, they are the role models. And that is the stepping stone in the formation of the character of the children. And I think a long term solution is required, a long term, I mean, a spiritual revolution is required. A spiritual revolution is required to reform human nature. So, that is called for. And
I,
if socialization is faulty, naturally, children will not be honest. And if father is present at
sir,
home,
I
he
think
will tell. Huh.
Sir, I think the solution lies with that if you want a good system, then you have to pay a price. And what is that price? That price is a long-term suffering. You may not get the fruit, but maybe your grandchildren will get the fruit. Because we need to, establish the structure once again in a with very positive spirit. Right. So I think
Yeah.
we must be ready to suffer. Suffering is the must. Through suffering you can establish a system, otherwise there is no other way, other model I cannot visualize. So
That
Duroti, I
also
think
Gandhi
the
told.
yes,
That also Gandhi
Gandhi
told.
told suffering, yes.
Fasting,
So
fasting.
you have to be moral. I mean, can you say that individuals are not moral? Again, it will be wrong to say that individuals are not moral. Again, it is also wrong to say that individuals are moral. So individuals are moral and not moral. So we have established a system by becoming immoral. Now let's be moral and establish the other system, other kind of system. Maybe that system can give some relaxation to all of us from the attack of globalization and from the attack of corrupted politics or state. I think, sir, that's my, you know, I mean, I can see it.
Rousseau
I'm
told,
sorry.
Rousseau told man is essentially good, but it is the circumstances which make him corrupt.
Bad, bad. It's
Marx also
Socrates.
believed, Marx also
Socrates.
believed that communism is possible if only human nature is good. If human nature is not good, communism is also not possible.
Exactly.
Communism is
Any
also not
good
possible.
things is possible only when
Right.
individual nature
Only
is good.
human nature is good.
So thank you, sir. I mean, it's a wonderful session. I hope that our all participants would have enjoyed it. I mean, you are a good teacher. There is no need to tell, read out your CV. So a teacher is one when he speaks, then we love to listen him. Right. So you are that kind of teacher, and let me declare that this is the today is 13th, and on 17th another important speaker is coming to my platform. That is Professor Hargopal sir, and Acharya sir knows it's very well that he is also a incredible speaker, right? And he can also uh, speak something that is thought provoking, right? So thank you, sir, for your talk, for your discussion, dialogue, and I always uh, you know I have a liking, special liking towards you, because you listen to us, you handle our question, you try to hit to the core point, right? So and also you agree that what the mistake you do and the mistake the other person also does, you directly identify it, you admit it, you tell it, and for that I think you will remain as a good teacher. So now we are at the last part of this academic event. Now I request my student Milli Sahu to provide a vote of thanks to our speaker.
Am I audible?
You are
Yes,
audible,
yes.
but we want to see
Audible.
your face also.
Okay, sir.
Unmute your video.
A very good evening to one and all. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Respected keynote speaker, respected convener, and all other dignitaries. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Professor Sunder Acharya, sir, for making an excellent presentation on the topic State and Governance in India under Globalization. Sir has told about the state and governance, features of good governance, and the most important things, market is the gateway of globalization, and the market knows the best, and governance cannot take place without the government. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your precious time and enlighten us with your knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. Then I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to our convener, Dr. Himanshu Sekhar Mishra, sir. Uh, you are taking such a nice initiative for us, sir. It helps a lot in our academic line. Thank you so much, sir. Then I would like to thank Dr. Bundaban Nahak, sir, for their presence and asking questions. Then last but not the least, uh, my deep sense of appreciations and thanks to all the participants who are present here and those who are asking questions and making this webinar a resounding success. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much once again, all of you. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Millie. I mean, thank you for your vote of thanks also. Uh, I have been giving scopes to my students, different students, to provide the vote of thanks. At least they will be part of this academic process. And I hope that my students will write article, they will review all these talks, and it's my responsibility to help you to publish your writing, right, after making it qualitatively rich. Sir, on behalf of all, I am also thankful and obliged. uh, I have been telling it in all web talks that This is something informally, conducted by me, and the kind of response are coming from the other side. And this is your second talk, and when people like you are there, and they are around me, they are actually my strength. I think that uh, no doubt there is shrinking of academics also. Academics is also institution, but I think such kind of discussion, dialogue, debates, talks that can help us to survive this academics. And for the survival of this academics, your contribution uh, means a lot. Again and again, I'm thanking you, and I'll be in touch with you. Sir, I'm stopping the recording, but be there. Maybe our students may informally they will interact with you. Sir, namaskar, sir. This is
Namaste.
formally ending.